because I'm still the player first, and then the composer second. And that's where I believe I'm able to kind of just sort of Rubik's Cube the entire puzzle for the art forms to come together in that regard, since it's over 50% of the experience.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Savepoint Stories. I'm your host, Karosh, and this is my podcast, Savepoint Stories, where we share intimate stories that connect us with the games we play and the world of games and the connections we make through them. And many of the times I get a chance to do these special episodes, much like this one, where I bring someone in from the industry that works in games, that makes the memories that we love, and gets to share some of the insights of what they do in that industry, in that role, and what makes that contribution so special. And today is one of those amazing opportunities. I'm have the pleasure to bring on one of our amazing guests today, Chase. Thank you for joining us. You're an amazing video game composer, technical music designer, award-winning, multi-talented. Am I missing anything? Is there anything we didn't hit?
Soon to be Grammy Award winning, soon to be Guinness World Record. We'll continue that on later.
All the accolades. Love to hear it. No, thank you again for joining us. Give you an opportunity to introduce yourself.
Thank you. Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Chase Bethea. As Karosh has given me the wonderful introduction, but I write music for video games and been doing it for 14 years. Just about 30 games in that time thus far, and do guest speaking, do live performances of my work from most of the soundtracks, which I love doing, and still writing music for games to this day.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I wanted to talk about. Is we've had so many different guests on the show hitting on different facets of the industry. It's not just I think oftentimes there's this misconception in the games industry. It's like game development. Game development. It just kind of gets lumped up into one. But there's so many aspects to it, from motion capture to voice acting to music, and such a role music plays from the early days of things like Pac-Man and Tetris, and you just have these melodies that play, and now you get to a point where games evoke emotions with story beats, and you have multifaceted, very complex story beats, much like a film or any other medium. And I really wanted to pick that part of your brain. But before we get into like the work side of it, and the work you do, I really want to get to know you, Chase, as the player. Before you were the composer, what really motivated you and made you find music? What like resonated with you as a player?
It was playing, like being enamored of playing the game, but then realizing that some music really just stood out differently from music that you would hear on the radio. So I grew up in Chicago, and I would hear smooth jazz, and I'd hear jazz, and I'd hear different styles, R&B, hip hop, pop music. And then you put a game in on Game Boy, or you're playing on 64, and you're hearing stuff that it doesn't sound even close to what you were hearing over there. And my ears have always been something that just perks to things that are new and that I like. And so being musically inclined from an early inception, just pretty much before I was born, understanding like music at its basic form, I was able to kind of just lean into these game compositions and become more enamored with them, and find sound tests, or figure out that the PlayStation had a CD player, and if it didn't read the disc by seeing the PlayStation second screen with the second sound that reads the game, it would just go to the CD player, and there's a whole soundtrack on it. I'm talking about Tomb Raider 1996. And it's an happy accident. I'm thinking, wait, I already like the music playing the game. You could just listen to the music on the CD player version. There's a whole soundtrack on here. Like, how did you do this? So that, or just hit AB plus select to get the sound tests on Final Fantasy Legend 2 on Game Boy, or just you don't have that, and so you just get to a level, and then I would just put it on there, and then just have that just be listening while in my room, just on repeat, and just not play the game.
So it started way back in your early days then, of the connection between music and gaming. Were both passions for you at that time, or did it sounded like you were musically inclined a little bit? Could you shed a little bit of light on that side?
Yeah, I was starting to learn music. So it was around 8 or 9 years old. But I had been
Okay.
actually was writing and transcribing music around that time without knowing I was doing that. I didn't know that terminology. I was just
Hmm.
copying notes from the saxophone my dad had got me, and then I had a Game Boy camera, and I was writing music on the Game Boy camera because there was a feature on there you could actually like write your own tunes and figure things out. So I guess I was a game composer at that age. From then, just not official, but I was. It technically does make it that. So I was in band from fifth to seventh grade, and then I was also in choir during that time. But I was playing around on instruments. I had like a toy keyboard my mom got me from an early age. Some maracas, a native flute that I've used on soundtracks that I've composed, like I Can't Escape Darkness and a couple others. So it's just been flowing through my life effortlessly, I should say, with just the musical inclination. And then the passion for music and games came later, which was around 20, no, it was around 2009, I want to say. And then I
And so this is where
realized,
you started to kind of look at it from you want to pursue game
yes, yeah,
composition. Okay.
yeah.
Yeah,
But I've
please.
been
What
told
was it
that,
about? Oh, go
yeah, sorry, I was told that my music sounded like it should be in a game since 2001.
ahead. Okay.
And it didn't, and then it kept being heard. It kept being said. It kept being said. I would write new stuff. It kept being said. It kept being said. So finally I was thinking, okay, I think I'll pursue this. I don't know how, but I think I'll figure it out. And I actually was working at an internet media company, and it was the IT's assistant, along with a myriad of other jobs. I was composing, and I was the of the audio. I was a stage manager, and I was doing a bunch of things at this place. It was a startup company. So the IT manager said, "Oh, it sounds like it should be in Castle Crashers." So instead of just saying like a video game, there was actually a title. And the title
Yeah.
led me to the curiosity, and the curiosity led me to the research. And then I figured out this thing. It was something called No Limit Windmugen. Are you familiar with that?
No limit. Which what was it?
Windmugen?
No, I'm not familiar with that. Could you shed some light on
Happy to. No
it?
Limit No Limit Windmugen was this open engine where you could put any character that you want. If you want Ronald McDonald to fight Sephiroth, you could have that. If you want Homer Simpson to fight someone, Yusuke Urameshi from Yu Yu Hakusho or any favorite anime that you have, you could do that. Anything, any character you've ever seen from any cartoon or fixed science fiction thing, if someone animated or made the character from some game or another, or just generally, you could put that in there and have them fight. So be like Captain America versus Batman or something. I don't know. This is something random, or even or Captain America versus the Death Star. Like you could do that. Someone really put the Death Star in there. Good luck beating the Death Star, but that's another. That's just some lore there. And so I figured out not only how to implement my favorite characters, and not only how to implement my own backgrounds, like basic coding, which I had in high school, and I was the top in the class for coding for just HTML based stuff, but figuring that out, and then I was able to figure out that my music could fit in the game. So I was doing what they call technical audio design, is just you being able to code and implement your own music into the game. And I was doing that without the title that came later. So I even figured that out.
uh,
And I was writing tracks already. And when he had said that music should sound like it should be in Castle Crashers, that's when I was figuring this. Oh, well, then, and I put my music in there, and it actually did kind of work. I was like, oh, they've been telling me this the whole time. I didn't realize that this is it. Really, they're really right. So I was thinking, oh, I got to go back to school. I got to relearn theory. I got to do all this because I was seeing film composers right at this high level, and I was thinking, well, I don't know any game composers, so the next medium close to this would be that. What that means, I have to go to
mm,
school and learn every part of theory and learn every part of whatever musicianship they did to be able to compete with them. So that was my mindset, not just knowing, not doing a full ton of research, just kind of just having this ideology of this is what the path I need to go down. I need to just go back to school and then go from there. But then even before I was transferred to a 4-year university, I was already nominated in the industry with the multiple people at high levels in the industry around the world for the soundtrack for I Can't Escape Darkness.
Wow. Okay. So you were already in the music space, and then that kind of spark of the constant inclination towards like gaming came later then,
Hmm.
and had you revisit it. What is there something as you were then pursuing it that challenged what you knew in many ways? Like you have, it's not like you had a base knowledge or a foundation of like all these theories and concepts and frameworks that, what was it about like composing for games that was like, oh, I gotta rethink this or redo this in a very different way? Or did it just mesh very very seamlessly?
I didn't have to think about that. It just, my sound was my sound from a child. And that when I realized
Okay.
that was what it was, and that was because people had told me it sounded like it should be in a game. I didn't have to do anything, right? Because they already knew that it fits in a game. So at that time it was writing game loops, but it wasn't until I learned how to do dynamic music, which changes based off environments or other things that I've mostly pioneered within the survival colony survival sim genre, which is just even changing items where the music will change or different
Mm.
atmospheres and combat stuff in tandem, that it elevated. But my sound is so unique and it's eclectic. It it doesn't sound like the typical video game composer stuff. However, my stuff grows with you. So if you hear it twice, then you're going to really enjoy this over time. It's not going to get you all the time right off the bat, but it will stay with you long term. And that's how I write. And that's what I enjoy about how I write, is that it's, even though it's not the most popular thing that people gravitate to, you're not going to forget it. You're going to come back to it for years and years. And I took this ideology based off of at least being able to hang on with that, to, because my goal is to be one of the greatest video game composers of our time that is equal to a Mozart or Beethoven. So in 100 years, if game music is still going on, my name will be there.
I love that. I love hearing that. And something you touched on, that kind of like made me curious was when you're putting together like with the more dynamic kind of games, with the dynamic aspect of how you compose. How, does that play into like how you set a sort of like an emotional palette for a game? Like, do you have, when you get brought in for a project? Let me ask. Um, and they say, "Hey, Chase, we'd love for you to compose for our game or for this, for aspects of our game or anything." What tools and what do you need to know about the game before you can like really give yourself to it? Like, is the characters an aspect? Is what kind of goes into that recipe for you?
Typically, they offer the basic of a game design document or a vertical slice or prototype of the game,
Okay.
and some art. What I usually like to have is what games influence them, because I'm most likely to have played them. I'm a big game player. Like you was like, I want to know about Chase the Player. And Chase the Player is actually someone who's been playing games since they were 6 years old. I've played a lot of games. I make time to play games. I'm not one of those video game composers that doesn't. No slight to them. It's just this is who I am. So I love it. There's a passion. There's an affinity, and I will stay enamored with that. And so I own about over 800 physical copy games. I play them on their actual consoles. I enjoy the process of that very much. That is how I connect with my craft.
Okay.
On top of which, right, a musician connects with their instrument. And so I have that connection too, whereas and I play different instruments, and then that's why I'm able to conflate those two together. So if they're
Okay.
able to at least give me they give me the basic of what I said, the game design document and the vertical slice and some art. I can go off of that and I can start to concept something in my mind. However, if I'm hearing about the references that they're influenced by to make said game, that enhances it further, because now I'm able to hear, okay, this is what the music should be in this form and this style now with this new setting that they're putting forth. And then on top of which, there's something called an audio asset list sheet. And this audio asset list sheet has references of music that they're influenced by or that they liked or that they thought would fit within the game, that they
Okay.
can't won't license, want to get close to, or just like, but they want a twist on it, and they know that I can kind of amalgamate those styles and have it to be a sonic identity for that project. And then that's when I'm able to kind of put that all together.
And does any of that also play into not just the the look and feel, but like the gameplay mechanics, like whenever jumps occur, whenever certain actions play. Does is that also informed by it as well, of like how you want to make your music play out, or
Yes.
your compositions work in with it?
Yeah, at this once I started doing more dynamic music design and became enamored with that, I was able to kind of concept beyond just game loops and like I said, the benefit of being a natural game player, enjoying the process of it all. I understand game mechanics and game design very well because I've been playing it a long time.
Hmm.
So that comes naturally along with the gift of just knowing music and things like that too. So I'm able to just think, oh, well, if you have this mechanic, I can hear this music thing transpiring when the player does this, and then moving towards that, I can change the time signature here. I can do a different chord progression
Uh,
there. I can figure things out. I can tie the theme in to be something subsequent to what's happening within the game in juxtaposition or non-linear forms that it just will excite me as the player that I think is cool because I'm still the player first and then the composer second. And that's where I believe I'm able to kind of just sort of Rubik's Cube the entire puzzle for the art forms to come together in that regard, since it's over 50% of the experience.
okay, no, that's I yeah, I didn't think of, and now you got my head spinning in more ways for the Rubik's cube. So like, how much of the gameplay, or do you do you work closely with, like, we had a guest on this show before that spoke very much on the UX and UI, user interface, and what the player, how they are intuitively learning the mechanics of a game or anything like that. Has that ever been a factor for how you present, like how you're asked to compose the music for a game? Is like, has your music ever been asked to be informative to game mechanics? Like, oh, as the level proceeds, whenever we want to detect something, we want a melody to play, or an aspect to get stronger or weaker. I think recently I learned, like in Hideo Kojima's Death Stranding 2, they were talking about how the more you work towards the main quest goal, the stronger the music would be playing, as a way to like be like, hey, you're getting closer to it, or you're getting further from the objective. I can't imagine that's the first time that's come up. Like, have you encountered something in your own experiences, or in your conversations with game developers?
Yeah, so I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but I'm going to give two. I'm gonna maunder a bit, but it's going to be very direct with the examples, so I can give you a better perspective of exactly the work that goes into where I'm thinking about this.
Okay.
So, the game of Ground Zero, like I was saying, I pioneered in this colony survival sim genre, but it was by accident. In the game of Ground Zero, you have items. You have a laser, you have a different things that can build the blueprints to kind of create and craft different machines to do different stuff that will get you progressing through the game further. You have different items that you can use. It's about 7 different items. They're at the bottom of the screen. So imagine that they're right here. And when the player chooses an item, I design the music to change. It's a very subtle change. You wouldn't know unless I was telling you, unless you were playing and then you understood, oh, the music is changed from a different part of the section because it's not abrupt. I designed the music in the DAW and the digital audio workstation and tested it first to be able to jump between different measures so that I know it seamlessly works between them. And then I'm able
Okay.
to kind of code it and do it between there. That's only for level one when your player is starting the game. When it goes into level two, so to speak, it now traverses the music into exploratory and combat. Whenever you're in danger type of form, then the music is going to be in a combat form, and when it's not, it's going to go back into exploratory, very ambient style form, but not completely ambient where it's stagnant. It's still evolving, but there's different pieces of music that are showing based off of the progress you're happening on your checklist within the game. Once it's in level three, then the music starts to move in a thematic area form. So now it's Subnautica and it would be underwater. So the theme needs to kind of replicate some underwater themes or an abandoned subway theme. And there's still combat elements because you still have enemies that will be related to the things that the player are doing, but those still dynamic changes are happening based off of the player's progression, and then so on and so forth from
Mm.
the fifth level and continuing on from there. Now, those who played Aground, they're kind of familiar with this. I didn't do it too much. I just kind of wrote it in a through compose form. But in the Ground Zero, now it's through compose form and a dynamic music sectional piece where everything is tied together based off of the player's actions and where they're happening, and the form of progression is still going onward. That's one
Oh,
example
okay.
for one game. There's another game. I've done this with many, so I'm going to give you the other one. There's another game called Starting School for Witches. In the game, when the game starts off in itself, no one player will have the same theme. The reason is because, and this is a visual novel RPG, and typically, like I
Okay.
said, when I do my homework, I understand visual novel RPGs typically just have loops. No problem with that. However, it's going to make it more unique if you have something that stands out a little bit different. And so the instrumentation will be different based off of the start screen alone. It's just not going to be the same instrumentation. So my boot up screen for the title screen, or your title screen music will be most likely will not be the same. It's that many variation differences. It sounds
Wow.
nice, it's still pretty, but it's just a small touch. And the reason is to kind of give the player insight of this is what you're going to be able to expect based off of what I'm offering musically into the game in itself. You can There's
Oh.
thematic choices and things that are going to happen that I've aligned in the music too, but the player may or may not catch this, but
Okay.
that's okay because it's supposed to be a subconscious feeling. Once the player gets to something called clearing the forest, where they have to do a story setting of clearing enemies from a specific from the forest that they're in, enhance their magical powers. I've aligned the music to fit the magical powers that they're fighting with. So the drums represent earth, the fire represents violins. There are certain whimsical spells that represent wind and water. And then aside from that, if they're doing well in the battle, then the music intensifies. It's something called like where all the instruments play, and it's called a tutti. And when the music isn't doing good, it subdues and it's not doing well, then most of those, regardless of the spells they're using that are attributed to those instruments, they subsidize. And so it's less instrumentation. With the player typically subconscious know, hey, it's not looking so hot for you. You might want to kind of retreat or get good. And that I'm proud of that dynamic system because I haven't seen that done before either. And it's always something coming. It's not because when I'm doing it, I'm trying to concept this thing to do something first. It's mostly
Uh-huh.
naturally coming from what would I have liked to see if I wasn't on this project, and I think it would be cool.
Yeah, you this is again you're saying you're the player first and then that informs you as a composer. That sounds like I never thought that's how much intention can go behind the music, but that's fascinating to see to hear. So you've been building and evolving this, from project to project it sounds like. Wow.
Absolutely.
Has it ever it's that also this is the other aspect of it I'm kind of curious about. It sounds like in a lot of these projects from what you're describing on these stories, you're allowed a lot of somewhat of some level of agency outside of like the base parameters they give of, hey, we're looking for this vibe and this slice of life and these requirements. Has it ever been hindered or limited in any kind of way by a constraint or by a property that you're working on, or any aspect of the game really kind of put a framing on you that was a challenge in any way?
I think the only refrain is mostly when the direction of the music isn't clear from the beginning, and that's why the audio asset list sheet with the reference has to be solidified early in the project and
Yeah.
ironed out with clear communication. Because if I start on the next track to kind of get something going, and I'm already building the sonic identity and the palette for it, and there is a disagreement, that's not a problem for me, but time is money for them, and so is deadlines and milestones for whatever goals they need to hit, which is being in the Steam
Sure.
Festival or going to PAX or whatever conference they're going to be demoing at, or online, regardless of what that is. And so that time spent is needed to kind of pivot and reconcept and make sure that it's fitting the art form appropriately in that regard. But in terms of, I typically am very clear and good with communication to say, this is my thoughts, this is what I'm thinking of
Hmm.
doing before I start writing. And then I just jump in instead of just saying, writing 4 minutes of music and say, hey, what'd you think? As what I thought the idea was. I'm not doing that. And so I'm clear
You're going
with,
with a plan.
yeah, going with a plan. I'm speaking about the ideas because it's gestating early for enough for me to be vocal about that. And so there's time to say yay or nay. And of course people change their mind, but it's very rare because mostly when I'm brought onto be a project, they understand what I'm bringing to the table because they want that. So
Okay.
they that's the good thing, at least, is that they know, oh well, we want this type of dynamic music and things, and if you're able to think on a game design level, then this is even more cool and we would really enjoy this, and the ideas and fresh approach that you would bring to the project overall, because it's not common, and along with the eclectic style, so it just adds up for them. But thankfully, with the people that I've worked with, they are, I believe, I present it well enough in a way whereas in they're naturally excited and trust me, first of all, to deliver what I'm going to do.
Nice. It sounds so. The work itself is kind of like a level of, hey, you can expect this type of quality and product from me. You know, as a member of the larger team.
Right.
How much does I know we often hear in the news and in in news outlets about the volatility of the games industry and the haphazard aspects of went back to ground zero and we had to redesign the game. I'm sure, like, just like what you're describing now, you need to be informed on how your music is going to play into things. How much of that dance is common of like, we redesign level two or this area or this region and we have to keep changing? Like, is that a nuanced conversation that you're actively a part of, or do they come to you after they've done some of that design? Like, are you part of that conversation, or are you a handoff with it?
Depends on the studio and how big the team is. So if it's like a
Okay.
AAA studio, then typically they most likely have the schedule pipeline down because they have a team that they're able to pay and all these things. And there's a producer and there's a manager and there's an audio director and there's a chain of
So the
command and they're
structure,
commuting.
yeah.
Yeah, the structure is there. If it's an independent game, I'm still in the conversation, but the team is smaller. So they're telling me, hey, we're pivoting over here. We don't need this yet. Don't worry about that. Don't even write it yet. And I'm thinking, cool. So I've been very fortunate to
Okay.
be on both. Whereas in it's, I've had to kind of do a couple of changes here and there. But the ones that I did have issues with, I left those projects.
Okay.
And I knew, was thinking, yeah, I'm not, this isn't how I work. And I can tell this is not, this doesn't feel right. I'm not happy doing this. I'm not having fun doing this. So I'm out. It's very
Yeah.
rare in the 14 years I have. I think I've only done it twice. So that's will tell you the at least the good track record that I have with some good working relationships.
No, that's fantastic to hear. And I'm curious, like you mentioned, you working, you've had experiences working with AAA and smaller indie side of it, and the nature and the behavior that can vary from that. Do you have, like, on a personal passion, as a like, going back to you as the gamer, is there a mountain or like a an Everest for you of like, I want to work on a certain type of project or a certain property, or what you may have? Is there something that's like there for you of like, I've always, it's on my checklist or my bucket list?
Yeah, I want to work on the IP that excites people at a level that is very popular, worldwide. I feel like I did that with the ground, but I feel like it didn't hit at the mark it should have hit. So
Okay.
if I could just have that project, whereas I pioneered that sound with that game, whatever that IP is, I want it to be original. I don't want it to be a franchise. I want it to be like the
Okay.
beginning of a franchise. So I guess in this sense, it would be, I am the originator of the IP for Ground. But if it was to be another type of hit game for something that was very fresh and very new, that would be the Mount Everest for me.
That's I love to hear that. No, I think that like constantly striving for stuff like that is what keeps us going in these passions that we do have. And I didn't get a chance to really ask you too much, but when we were talking about you as the gamer, what are some of the games that like shit like specifically that you are like these really drive me and I've spent hours on or I've obsessed over? Is there any specific ones, or in your you have a large library like you said of games, like what's notable that stands out for Chase?
Yeah, I got a list. Can I pull this list up really quick?
Yeah, of course.
I'm
Please
actually.
take a second to do
I'm,
that.
you're the first to hit this question based off of the podcast questions. Like no one's ever asked me this, and you did it. So let me pull this list up
I mean,
really
yeah,
quick.
with you telling me so much about like you being a passionate gamer, I'm like, I want to know who is that Chase and like what is this, what what drives him.
I mean, I guess I have kind of asked this before, but I have a list now, so I'll go through the list because I really thought about it,
Okay.
and I was like, okay, I'm gonna go. So from the top, I guess in the backwards form, it's like Breath of the Wild, Batman Arkham City, Eternal Ring, Beyond Oasis. I mentioned Tomb Raider earlier,
Mm,
1996.
yeah.
Turok Battle of the Dinosaurs, Shadow of the Colossus, Deja Vu, Shadow of Mordor, Luminous Plus, Twisted Metal Small Brawl, Rygar the Legendary Adventure, that's on PS2, Castlevania Symphony of the Night, Shining Force, and Castlevania Lords of Shadow.
I love that list. That's a very like you have you seen there's like a trend that's been going around lately of like the 10 games to get to know me. It's not necessarily
No.
the 10 best games or the 10 favorite games. It's like these games really characterize who I may be as a person. I feel like the
Mm,
list you kind of described makes me better understand you as an individual as well. Like you get aspects of, oh, okay, he's got a little bit of this taste and that, and the Shadow of Colossus and the Turok and the I like that. That's a good. That's. Thank you for sharing that.
thank you for asking.
And I kind of wanted to pivot off of that a little bit and ask. We nowadays we see so many games both presenting the music composition as like a big, much more part of the pronounced part of the gameplay experience. Does the genre of like music games really do anything for you? Is that an act where it's an active part of it, like either rhythm based or otherwise? Like there, you go back to what you were describing about the early days, and I think of like Mario. Was it not? Was it Paint where you could like have some of the compositions like in the game?
Yeah.
Um, Early to that to now, like do you is that an interest of yours, and if so, like what could you share?
When did I did a game that almost came out on Google Stadia just before they pulled the plug on it. Just
Okay.
before it. Timing was awesome. Timing is perfect. Really a copacetic project. Loved working with the team. Really cool. Really seamless. We did something called Bushido Bots, and it was
Okay.
based off of again the all of our interests of loving the game Bushido Blade, right? So it was every person on the team loved that game, including me, right? So I just aligned with everything. And it ended up turning out that I did a rhythm fighting game from the menu screen of the music seamlessly transitioning into the fight itself, the music ramping up into the second level when the music is getting more intense to whoever is winning, and then the most intense part of the music, whereas in there might be a victor, then the victory music, and then seamlessly goes back into the menu screen all in one flow.
Okay. That's the moment or the experience you had from that then.
Yeah, that's what I
Okay.
designed and that's what I wrote. But that's about as close as it gets thus far. I mean, my closest rhythm type of game that I can typically like, biggest influence is Luminous Plus. So that is, I think, the master of it being in a rhythmic form of something, like where that game is kind of just following the progress of what you're doing and the music changes and advances. So that's where I took
Sure.
that concept, and I hadn't seen that be done in a fighting game before. So except Killer Instinct, which the 2016 version, which Mick Gordon did.
Oh, okay, okay. Yeah, I'm familiar with that one as well. Yeah, I agree. Luminous is hits on such a way where, and I think even the most recent one further kind of emphasized some of those. Like it's always been in its
Mm,
DNA to
yeah.
enhance. Like the music is such an element of the gameplay itself,
Yes.
and there's something unique about that too. Um, I was curious, just for the from a career standpoint, or from you pursuing, I'd imagine like when, or please correct me if I'm wrong, but like when you had started pursuing the games industry, more so in as a composer and audio designer, was that a relatively like, were you in a new territory? Was that a space that had, hey, go down this path, do these things, or was it very much like you figuring like, oh, I need to adapt what I know and building out? Was there a path, or was there a, you figure it out?
I figured it out. I shipped my first game without any mentorship or tutelage or advice or anything. I read half of a book that I always say. I bought the complete guide to game audio by Aaron Marks, second edition. I read half of that book. I did a couple of things in the book. It's supposed to stuff on game dev forums, and I did, and then got a couple bites. Got one person interested in it. Wrote another demo, landed the gig, and that ended up being my first shipped paid game.
Wow. Okay.
Then yeah, and
Figuring it out.
that came after I was at an internship working on a mobile game called Zombie Wonderland 2. But the studio had some drama and then it separated, and I could have been writing for something, but then I wasn't sure about the people that was working there. So I was like, I better figure out, I want more of this, but I better figure this out on my own. So I just happened to do some more research, and that book helped me tremendously. And then I was able to, then I got an internship and apprenticeship and all that stuff a little bit later, like 2 or 3 years later or something like that. But yeah,
I
I
see.
figured I shipped my own game without any of that. Most people learn from other people. I was like, oh,
Sure.
that wasn't my path.
No, I love. And do you see that now? Are you like, how does the community for video game composers, or making music for the video game industry, is it its own space now, or is it very much like a blend, where they cross mediums?
The game audio community is definitely its own space.
Okay,
People help each other, to the capacity that they want to and can and will. It depends on, I don't know. It's really hard to answer because you have to have a certain personality and different and certain goals that you want. So if you are do you want to be a freelance person? Do you want to do sound design and music? Do you want to just do music? Do you want to work at a studio? Do you want to be a technical audio designer? You only do that. What is your, do you want to work at a very specific studio? There's just so many type of personality goals that fit into that other realm that it just depends on how they want to navigate and who they gravitate to and who they look up to see that they do it and may want to be around and learn from, or to figure it out their own. There's so many resources now in schools that are online that teach you, and you
hmm.
can just join any other community now. I think that's mostly helpful if they find it. But I've always, I discovered very early I'm on the path that hasn't been walked, and I accepted and did that. And when I decided that I was just going to keep doing my own thing, and that works for me.
No, that's beautiful, and I love knowing that like it hasn't deterred you. Like so many, it's a daunting thing just pursuing something where, even if it is a pre-existing set kind of, hey, this is the mountain you climb to get to there, and this is the path, and that's already hard enough. But to then go and say, I don't know what that is, or I don't know, it doesn't exist already, but I know
Yeah.
roughly, I know the in essence what I want to chase, and making your own path, I think, is commendable. And I appreciate you kind of sharing aspects of that, and your journey is still continuing and your work is still kind of going. I do want to get close to wrapping up, but before I do have a
Mm.
question, just in the vein of like pursuing that passion and forging this career that you've forged thus far. Would you, to someone, if there was a young Chase and he was looking at you now and asking for that advice, what kind of advice would you impart them, knowing what you know now, to pursue this?
If you have the if you're hearing something multiple times about what people are telling you should sound like, just pursue that now and figure that out. Do the research, be curious, do the homework yourself, and then ask for help after you do all the homework you can. And definitely just keep doing your own thing. You're hearing if you're hearing the confidence coming externally is because internally you're putting that out. It's just a reflection of that, and don't waver from that at all. You are definitely where you belong, and you will be happy with doing that if you continue the path and finishing it.
Well said, Chase. Thank you again for coming on the show. Is there any closing thoughts you wanted to end with that you wanted to share or leave our viewers with?
Yeah, sure. So I've got a book coming out with some of these deeper concepts and topics called Student of the Game: How I've Navigated the Video Game Industry the Past Decade. So it'll be out next year. So keep a lookout for that. It's the first of its kind. It talks about how I don't believe in imposter syndrome, how to get rid of that ideology and stop using that as a crutch. It talks about what real networking is, and the ways to build upon that. It's a lot of mental practices and anecdotes that I've gone through the past decade or more in the industry, and how I've conquered them and how to help others. And so I highly recommend that people check that out, because it's not just talking about the typical, nothing wrong with those other ones that they've done. Those are great books about how to write video game music, but you have to have health and mana, right? And experience points to continue to play the game. If you want to continue to play, I think this book will be able to help those, go forward, because anybody can figure out the technical ideas and the music melodies and all that stuff, but how you actually mentally traverse this space as it gets more difficult, you probably would want to know what that's like. And so there was no other book from my perspective that talks about that, and so I'm very glad to present that to the world.
That's fantastic. You said next year it's coming out.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we'll keep a lookout for that. Where can Chase? Where can people find you? Please plug anywhere and anything where people can find your work and you speaking on these subjects or any other ways. The floor is yours.
Absolutely. Thank you. So you can reach out to me, contact me at Chase, Chase, Bethea, B as in boy, E as in Eric, T as in Tom, H as in Harry, E as in Eric, A as in Apple.com, ChaseBethea.com. If you put my name in Google, I will come right up. And you can follow my YouTube channel. Might as well just follow both. One of them is the music channel that has like my 15 game soundtracks. Hopefully you like them. And then my personal channel, which I showcase my live performances, behind the scenes of how I compose from different projects for games, and more insights, interviews like these, and Savepoint Stories that I made a playlist of, and things like that too. So you can kind of get an insight of in terms of how I think and other type of ideologies that I have. I also have a Patreon, which is going to give a more deeper insight in terms of things that probably won't be so, what is it called, politically correct about when I'm on these type of things, but it'll give you the real, and mostly they're not a podcast, they're more like inside Chase journals. So there's things about,
Okay.
hey, I really dealt with this. Probably can't talk about it as a topic on a podcast, but this is a little 9-minute audio clip of this thing of something else I've dealt with in the field that may have not made it in the book. So people might enjoy that as well too. And then the last thing I would say is just support the Bandcamp. Bandcamp will be the best way. Streaming doesn't pay, but the best way to support my work is just go to ChaseBethea.bandcamp. You can stream a little bit on there, but then helps to show like the support that of the work that I'm doing there forward. And if you want to stream it on other things, you can do Apple, Tidal, or Amazon, and those other platforms, except Spotify.
Okay. Everything except Spotify. Perfect.
Everything
Thank you,
except
Chase.
Spotify.
I will make sure to put all the links that you just described in the show notes for the video.
Thank you.
Thank you again, Chase, for joining me on this episode. I think your story is amazing, and I appreciate you sharing so many of the insights and how we got to where you are today, and who you have been, and who you are, and who you're continuing to become. Um,
Thank you.
and thank you for the viewers for joining us. Until next time, we'll catch you on the next Save Point.